If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by John Bollman. He does great work over at RotoWire, the show/podcast Baseball with Bollman, and so much more. We're going to be chatting with him about what we've seen here in the first month of the season, how he's handicapping these games moving forward, and why you do want to be going a little bit more with your gut instinct rather than going end-all be-all with regards to small sample size of stats that we've got right now. We're going to be talking about some of the games for Friday, and John always delivers such great insights, so going to be great to get him aboard in a few minutes in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to fire those in. First one is by Twitter/X timeline at Juden_81. Keep in mind, there's they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but everything today, it is powered by Edge Boost over at edgeboost.bet. You're able to get a $1 match on your first $25 deposit by utilizing the promo code of Greg. That is GREG. You get cashback rewards as you utilize Edge Boost, and they make sure that you have access to your rewards and your funds 24/7, 365 on leap years 366. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Thursday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
In the double dip, we did see the Kansas City Royals take it to the Colorado Rockies, who are now 4-20. They're on pace to win 27 games this season. They are winning 16.6% of their games, so not great to say the least. You had one overwhelming game and you had one underwhelming game, as the overwhelming game, that would be in game 1, as the Royals were able to get the job done by a count of 7-4, as for the Colorado Rockies, that's actually double the amount of runs that they're averaging on the road this season, as Hunter Goodman, out of the 8 home runs that the Rockies have on the road this season, he's got 4 of them. His 4th of the campaign goes deep off of Cole Ragans, and then Jordan Beck gets his first home run of the season, also off of Ragans, who only lasted 3 innings, giving up 4 runs. The bullpen from there was great, though. Lucas Erceg, Carlos Aceves, both lend a scoreless inning, and then Anel Zerpa, along Steven Cruz, both lend a scoreless inning. And for the Royals, they got going with regards to their offense, as they did a nice job of getting to Armand Marquez, who gave up 6 runs in 4 innings. From there, Jake Bird, 2 scoreless innings. Jimmy Herget gives up a run in his 2 innings of work. And then in game number 2, it was the Royals getting the job done by a count of 6-2, as for the Kansas City Royals, they were able to do a nice job of being able to get into the starter in Chase Dollander, who he did not allow a home run in this one. That's good. He had allowed 8 home runs in his first 3 starts, but still not necessarily what he was hoping for. 5 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings. From there, you did have a unearned run given up in an inning of work by Juan Mejia, who was making his MLB debut. Had a scoreless inning out of Zachary Ognos, and Jaden Hill, he was able to give you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. By the way, the Rockies have actually been a pretty rock-solid under team this far this season. 15 unders, 8 overs, and a push, and he did have Jordan Beck get a pair of bombs in this one. Home runs number 2 and 3 of the campaign, as he does go deep off of both Michael Lorenzen and Daniel Lynch. Lynch in 2 innings gives up that solo home run. Lorenzen, he gives up a solo home run in his 6 innings of work, and then John Schreiber, he was able to go for a scoreless inning of his own, and you were able to get a nice performance out of the Chicago White Sox for as long as the game lasted. So if you took the full game total along with the run line, these were all void, but for the White Sox, they do get the job done 3-0, as you had a nice 5-inning scoreless start from Shane Smith. From there, a scoreless inning of Jordan Leisure along with Braden Eisert. And for the White Sox, pair of home runs, as home run number 2 of the season was provided by Lennon Sosa. And then Miguel Vargas is able to go deep. Home run number 1 this season for Chris Paddock. He gives up 1 of those home runs. He gives up 2 runs in total over the course of 5 innings. And then Orde Alcala, he gives up the home run over the course of his 2 innings of work. He gave up the home run that Vargas was able to hit. So, rough loss for the Minnesota Twins. And this was a very nice W for the Seattle Mariners. 4-3. They're able to take it to the Boston Red Sox. Brian Wu said woohoo to giving up just 2 runs over the course of 6 innings, and he did give up a home run along the way as Alex Bregman gets his fifth home run of the season. Then you had home run number 2 of the season from the backup catcher and Mr. Carlos Narvaez. For Narvaez, he was able to go deep off the bullpen as it was Gabe Spire giving up that home run in 2/3 of an inning. Colin Snyder, Andres Munoz, they both on the scoreless inning. Trent Thornton, he's able to get an out of the bullpen scoreless. And for Boston, Garrett Crochet did not have it in this one. 4 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. From there, the bullpen was solid. Liam Hendricks, Greg Weiser, both on the scoreless inning. And nice to see Hendricks back in the game. Did have 3 walks, so it was a little bit rough there, but kept it scoreless. And Luis Guerrero was able to give you 2 scoreless innings, but too little too late out there. For the San Francisco Giants, they've been one of your top over teams in all of baseball, and they get an overwhelming 6-5 win over the Milwaukee Brewers. For the Giants, 16 overs, 9 unders, and a push. And for the Brew Crew, you did have Tobias Myers make his season debut. Gives up 2 runs in 4 innings. He did allow a home run along the way. Is Mikey Yastrzemski, 4th home run season. Then Matt Chapman, he gets home run number 5. That comes off of Abner Uribe. For Uribe, he comes in for an inning, gives up 2 runs. You did have Tyler Alexander give up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Trevor McGill, a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Jared Koenig, Nick Mears, they both on the scoreless inning. And for San Francisco, you did have Landon Roop give up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 3 2/3 innings, but bullpen from there was solid. Spencer Bivens, 2 scoreless innings. Taylor Rogers, Camilo Doval, both on the scoreless inning. Actually, Tyler Rogers, his brother Taylor, is now on the Reds, and Eric Miller, he's able to end 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless of his own. And for the Orioles and the Nationals, they play a little bit of a low-scoring Leicester sort of game. As for the Orioles, 2-1, they are able to get the job done. Cade Povich, a very good start in this one, allowing just 1 run in 6 2/3 innings. Ynier Cano, don't you know, he was able to get an out of the bullpen scoreless. Gregory Soto, Felix Bautista, they both on the scoreless inning. And for Washington, Mackenzie Gore gives up 2 runs in 6 innings. Jose Ferrer, a scoreless inning out of the bullpen. And then you did have 2 scoreless from Cole Henry as well, doing this a little bit in advance. So we still have some late games pending right now, but as I am doing this, the Arizona Diamondbacks are currently taking it to the Tampa Bay Rays. As for the Tampa Bay Rays, you've had Drew Rasmussen give up 3 runs through the first 4 innings, and for Arizona, you're getting a rock-solid start out of Corbin Burns right now. He had 7 punch-outs through his first 4 innings of work right now. Angels and Pirates are all tied up 3-3, as this was not the start that the Angels were looking for from Tyler Anderson, as he has given up already a pair of home runs, as Oneil Cruz gets home run number 7 of the campaign. And how about home run number 1 for Matthew Gorski? So that's pretty rock solid. And right now, the Rangers and the A's, that just got started. So we will polish that up on the podcast tomorrow. But that said, if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball, it has been a year of the favorites. And we'll talk about this with John Bollman, the fact that they're hitting at 60.7% on the money line, 224 and 145. Meanwhile, the under sitting at about 52.3%, 183 unders to 167 overs. If you're looking at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, this with the late games pending, the under hitting at about 53.5%, 45 unders to 39 overs, with the money line favorites hitting at about 58.6%, 51 and 36. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Thursday. Now let's take a look at Friday, what we're seeing out there in Major League Baseball right now, and so much more with John Bollman, who does great work over at RotoWire. Joining me next right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Pieces Family Podcast.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got John Bollman aboard. He does a great job with the show/podcast Baseball with Bollman. He does a tremendous job over at RotoWire, and I know that he's joined our guy, Johnny Venezia, on the Breaking Bet podcast as well. This guy is all over the place, whether that be with college baseball, whether that be with the pro rank. He does a tremendous job on both fronts, and you're able to follow John Bollman on the old Twitter/X at his first and last name, John Bollman. Last name is spelled Bollman, and then the number 11 altogether. And John, great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, as always, thanks for having me on, man. I'm always happy to talk some baseball.
I'm always happy to have you aboard, John. And John, we're starting to reach one of those, in my opinion, good monikers in baseball, where we are now about a month or so through the start of the season. As a matter of fact, we are 28 days through the start of the normal continental United States start of the season. And just what have been some of your takeaways thus far, whether that be positive or negative, with regards to betting baseball?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting the start of the season. You got to worry about the cold weather, players on their cold starts, on their hot starts, a lot of injuries to worry about. So there's a lot going on this early in the season. I think it's very important to look at certain things like that, look at starting pitching, look to see how often relievers are pitching, because they don't usually go 3 days in a row this early in the season, at least, with that big of a pitch count. So there's a lot to look into.
Yep, there certainly is. And I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like the favorites have really reigned supreme a little bit more than what we're used to seeing towards the beginning part of the season. Because coming into the day on Thursday, we had seen favorites on the money line hitting at a rate of about 61 or so percent. And what do you attribute that to? Because typically baseball is the ultimate underdog sport. And while you're still doing better with regards to underdogs than saying like the NFL or something like that, I do find it a little bit striking that the underdogs have been having as rough of a time as they have this far this season.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I never really thought about that, but it is usually chalkier early in the season. I think a lot of the reason is you can see which teams are hot. A lot of times you get into the season and, you'll have these, say, 60 and 30 teams, and, they're playing very well for that first half of the season. Then they hit these low stretches. People don't necessarily assume that they're going to have these bad stretches, or they see a very good team and they don't think that they'll end up losing 7 of 10 games or anything like that. I think also a lot is just games being more predictable early in the season, but I'm not totally sure, to be honest. I think it could be a lot of different things.
Yep, it certainly has been interesting to take a look at it. Would you say that perhaps the, shall we say, payrolls and the income of some of these teams has been a little bit to play with that? Because I have noticed over the last few seasons that it does feel like the divide between the top teams and the bottom teams just feels like it's bigger in baseball in this day and age than it was just a few short years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think this time of year for sure. I think a lot of teams obviously make moves at the trade deadline. They move some of their major league talent in exchange for some top tier prospect talent. So that could have something to do with it as well. I think there are just a lot of factors that could go into it. Like you said, teams that aren't spending nearly as much early and who've made the big moves in the offseason, you can kind of know that they're going to be a little bit better.
Yep, I think so as well. As joining me on the show, we do have John Bollman. He does a tremendous job over at RotoWire, Baseball with Bowman, and so much more. Joining me on the Baseball Betting Show. And John, in terms of just specific teams, has there been one or two that stood out to you, whether that be a positive surprise or a negative surprise here through the first month of the season?
Yeah, I think the biggest one would be the Orioles. They have one of the best lineups in the league. They've got some serious young talent. Everybody thought that they were going to finally go out and get those, guys that would put them over the top in this offseason. And, they didn't. Everybody was saying their starting pitching is lacking. They don't have any starting pitching quality or depth before the season. And now Zach Eflin and Grayson Rodriguez are hurt, and those are their two top pitchers, and we see them way below 500. So I think that's a team, you could have predicted it. And for whatever reason, Mike Elias just decided not to go out and make any moves, which is also weird because their new owner, Rubenstein, came out and said how he just wants to spend, and he's not getting any younger. He wants to spend as much as possible. So the Orioles are a big question mark for me. I think another team would be the Tigers. I love how they've come out. The past couple of years, they've gotten off to really, really slow starts and then turned it on towards the back end of the season. This year, they're getting off to that hot start. So I'm very interested to see, how far they can go.
Yep, I'm very curious as well. With the Detroit Tigers, it's been a great story for them, and so glad that you mentioned with the Baltimore Orioles. It has been not great what we've seen in terms of starting pitching, to say the least, out of them. And they're going to be trotting out their Brandon Young for a second career start on Friday. And ironically enough, they're going to be facing off against the Detroit Tigers and Casey Mize. And right now with the Tigers, I'm seeing as low as minus 122 on them, as high as minus 130 in terms of their money line. I'm not sure how you take a look at this matchup, but again, with the Baltimore Orioles, I need to see it to believe that they are going to be able to get online, because I do think that starting pitching is honestly hurting a bullpen that I like Yunier Cano. I like Felix Bautista. I think that those guys in the back end are rock solid, but if you can't get to those guys, you really don't have a way of being able to close out games with that solid bullpen. And with the Tigers, with the way that they're able to mix and match with this bullpen, I do think that you're getting a very fair price on Friday with them being as high as minus 130, as low as more like minus 122.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Orioles are also playing today where the Tigers are off. So the Orioles bullpen could get a little bit worked, depending on who gets those innings tonight. While the Tigers, they've got tons of depth and a very good bullpen. They're going to have them all rested going. And Casey Mize is also someone to talk about. He was a first overall pick, and he came up, and it takes pitchers, a good amount of time to kind of figure it out. But especially a guy like him who has 6 different pitches, you're going to need to figure out how to pitch major league hitters. I think a lot of people gave up on him way too early. And now he's gotten off to that really, really good start to the season. And we're kind of seeing why he was a first overall pick.
Yep, I agree with you. And how much do you want to try to bank on guys that are in season number 2 coming off of major surgery? Because I remember with Mize, he missed the entirety of the 2023 campaign, and you could tell that last year he was looking solid, but he wasn't necessarily his full self. I feel like here in 2025, he's starting to round into form, and I think that guys like him, someone like a Walker Buehler, for example, these are guys that I think that bettors want to be alerted of because I feel like that season number 2 coming off of major surgery is really when you see these guys start to take hold and you start to see these guys look like their normal selves.
Yeah, for sure. You hit it on the head, especially, second year coming off a major injury as well. That and just being a pitcher and coming up and having to get used to the league, how to figure out how to pitch certain guys, just getting in your routine. I think that makes tons of sense. We've seen a lot of times pitchers come back from injury in their first season. They've been very iffy. Like you look at Sandy Alcantara coming back from major surgery, and he's been very iffy to start the season. They need time to build up their confidence again and trust their stuff.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I do think that that's always something to be mindful of because sometimes it gets lost in terms of all the handicaps, in terms of all of the, shall we say, betting models, what have you. These guys coming in for season number 2 off of major surgery, I think that that's big. And I think that this is very interesting as well. As the Colorado Rockies, here's a newsflash. They suck this year. They entered into game 2 of their double dip on Thursday with 4 wins as far this season. That said, you know as well as I do, this is a Rockies team that's completely different when they're at home rather than away from home. It's going to be Andrew Abbott against Kyle Freeland. And I'm seeing a total of 9 out there. How do you evaluate this Reds versus Rockies game? Because with the Rockies, they have not been able to score to save their lives away from home. But I feel like even for as bad as this Rockies team is, a 9 at Coors Field is just too low to take under.
I like Andrew Abbott. He's gotten off to a really good start this season. But yeah, I mean, the Rockies, it doesn't even really matter who starts for them. They've got a terrible bullpen too, so it depends who comes in there. And yeah, coming off this doubleheader today, they should be low on pitching. The Reds, they had that 124-run game, and that definitely skews some of their stats, but they're one of the better teams in baseball against right-handers. It just seems like when they're good against right-handers or good against, I guess, any pitching in general, it's all in the same games, and then they'll have those like 1-2 run games as well. But no, I would definitely lean over there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because with these Cincinnati Reds, they might be able to get 9 runs all by themselves, to your point, because when you go through a bullpen that is not even necessarily good to start with, I do think that you're able to have the propensity for some good run scoring there. As John Bollman, who does such a tremendous job, taking a look at this great game of baseball, is joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, and I think that this one is very interesting for Friday as well. We've got the Blue Jays and the Yankees. Jose Barrios goes for the Jays, and Carlos Cookie Carrasco goes on the bump for the Yankees, and Yankees are right around minus 135. What do you make out of this one? Because I never want to back Jose Barrios on the road. I really never want to bet on Carlos Cookie Carrasco home or road. And it's a good old situation of something's got to give with 2 pitchers that are in environments where I really don't like them in either of their respective environments in this one.
I think you touched it. This game, you don't really want to bet on Carlos Carrasco. Don't totally trust Jose Barrios. Division game, haven't been hitting lately, but they should hit against Carrasco. I mean, the total's at 10 too, which is super high. The Blue Jays have got off to a good start this season, but it seems like whenever they hit the road, they are much worse. They start to struggle. So Blue Jays being on the road as well. I mean, I guess I would lean Yankees, but I think my favorite play there would be the over. But at the same time, that might just be a game to stay away from.
Yeah, because if you could get a normal total in this game, I'd be right there with you. But man, they really are making a tax on this one with the total being at 10. So they really are not believers in these 2 pitchers, and I don't see why you would be a believer in Jose Barrios on the road and Carlos Carrasco pitching, I don't know, anywhere. So right there with you there, and we do have ourselves a great slate on Friday. All 30 teams are going to be in action. Anything else that's catching your attention, whether that's going to be a game that you're going to be betting on or just a team or a pitcher that you want to gauge a little bit more in general?
I think an interesting matchup will be Red Sox Guardians. The Guardians are playing solid to start the season. The Red Sox got off to a really slow start, but they've kind of rounded into form, although they just dropped a series to the Mariners, which isn't ideal. But I think that's a great matchup. I think that line is around a pick 'em for a reason. I think it's going to be a very good one. So I'm really interested to see which team kind of separates themselves in that series.
Yep, I am very curious as well. And with Tanner Houck, something that I've always noted is that he pitches much better when he is away from home rather than at home. And we see that with quite a few of these Red Sox pitchers because it's got what it is. Pitching out there in Fenway, that is rather difficult. And for Houck, he has that north of 70 ERA, but he had that one blow-up start against the Rays where he allowed 11 earned runs. And this time of year, how much do you want to be taking a look at more of the advanced numbers rather than the raw ERA, what have you? Because I think that Tanner Houck is a very good example of this. Guys who have their numbers just completely skewed and completely warped based on one bad start.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough this early in the season, even just pitching in general. The sample size is only 3, maybe 4 starts for a lot of these guys. You really can't look into any stats too much. Even the expected ones, I don't think you can look into much. The sample size for everything is just extremely small. So you kind of just have to go with a bit more of your gut, a bit more feel than looking at the numbers this early in the season.
Total agreement with you there. I think that that's good advice to be taking. And John, I know that you're doing an incredible job taking a look at this game of baseball, not just the pro side of things, but I know that you do a great job with regards to college baseball this time of year as well. You've got a lot of things going on, including the show Baseball with Bollman. I know that you're over there helping out Johnny Venezia from time to time as well. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, for sure. It's at John Bollman 11 on Twitter. That's where I post most of my content, free plays, just about everything over there. And then I'm at Baseball with Bollman on Instagram and TikTok. I don't post as much there. Everything will be on X though.
Absolutely. And Johnny does a tremendous job looking at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. And every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So big thanks to John for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here, lovely Las Vegas, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by John Bollman. He does great work with the show Baseball with Bollman. On top of that, I know he's doing great work with RotoWire and so many different platforms. He does it both on the college baseball side of things, along with the MLB side of things, and every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So big thanks to John for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do you note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, and the American League games, and any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we get things started with 951, 952 on the betting board? It is the Philadelphia Phillies on the road against the Chicago Cubs. Colin Ray says hip hip hooray to another start, and Taijuan Walker goes for the Phils. Right now, there's no totals up on this game since Wrigley Field wind will be dictating that. And for the Cubs, you'll find them at a -130, +110 to +118. That number on the Phillies. Most of the dime lines are not out yet. I'd be willing to lay up to a -127 on the Cubs money line. I would think we could probably get something closer to a -125 out here in Vegas. So once we get the dime lines up, I'm thinking I'll be able to land on the Chicago Cubs, but that's a little bit TBD. And with regards to the total, I set mine to where a 7 or less. I'll be in on the over, 7.5 or higher to the under. It is going to be quite windy at Wrigley Field, and it's not going to start out too bad. Like, more towards the first pitch of this game, it's going to be right around about 10 or so miles per hour winds, and then it picks up more and more with the wind blowing in, so the conditions are actually going to get worse and worse as the game goes along. And for Taijuan Walker, it's been a much better year for him this year than it was last year because, well, he couldn't do much worse than he did 8 seasons ago. But so my, shall we say, question marks with a 2.29 ERA, but a 4 425 fielding independent. He's only getting 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's giving out 3.7 walks per 9. Has cut down on giving up the deep ball. Last year was giving up 2.6 home runs per 9 innings, but still need to see more before I truly believe it. And for Colin Ray, it's been more like hip hip hooray for him, as he has given up only 2 runs in his first few appearances thus far this season. He made a few long relief appearances. Now they're pushing about there as a starter, 13 2/3 innings, has allowed 2 runs. His strikeout numbers have not necessarily been supreme since resurfacing at the big league level. He's still only getting about 7.5 to 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and I do think that there's going to be some real regression here as he does pitch a lot of contact. Obviously, the wind blowing in, that is going to be helping him out quite a bit, but this is still a very fearsome Philadelphia Phillies team that has a guy in Kyle Schwarber that's been able to give you 5+ home runs, that's been able to give you right around about a 400 on base. For Bryce Harper, the home run power has not necessarily been there thus far this season, but he's still doing a nice job supplying about a 390 on base, and 5 home runs is still not too shabby itself. They need to get Alec Boehm online, but now he's starting to hit at 230, which still is not great, but it's getting back up there, and Brandon Marsh has been an unmitigated disaster thus far this season, but Trey Turner is starting to get online as well, so I do like this offense, and for the Chicago Cubs, they're right there as the top scoring team out there in the National League, as it's been a really good year for Seiya Suzuki. Suzuki has went out there and has been able to give you 6 home runs, about a 350 on base. The signing of Kyle Tucker in the offseason, north of 400 on base with 7 home runs, he's been tremendous. Michael Busch has been able to give 5 home runs, just 1 through 9. Pretty much everyone is moving the line, even guys like Pete Crow Armstrong at the bottom fold has been rock solid. Dansby Swanson hasn't hit for a lot of average, but is still giving you 4 home runs. For the Cubs, though, this has been a little bit of an issue in terms of the bullpen, as the guys that were able to step up last year, Nate Pearson, Porter Hoge, guys like this, they just haven't been quite as effective thus far this season. You do have a Cubs team that, with regards to bullpen ERA, they are ranked in the bottom half of the big leagues as of right now, so that is something that you do want to be mindful of. And on the flip side, you've had a Philadelphia Phillies team that's had a really rough go of it. Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado have been rock solid. Orion Kirkering last year was good, but he's off to a rough start to the season. Phillies, they are 29th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, so not necessarily a place where they want to be. So I do think that even though the wind is blowing in, you're going to see a little bit of run scoring here, 7 or less, and on the over 7.5 prior to the under end, where the Cubs will be willing to lay up to a minus 126 on that money line. 903, 904 on the betting board. You've got the New York Mets on the road against the Washington Nationals. Jake Irvin goes for the Nats. Kodai Senga is on the bump for the Mets, and the Mets and Washington Nationals don't really have any initial openers up on the board. The only place I'm seeing an opening number is on FanDuel, and right now I am seeing that opener with the Mets at a minus 186 on the money line, plus 156 on the Nationals, with a total of 9, over and under, both at minus 110. And if we could get that total of 9, I'm going to be in on the under. I did set my total at 8.2. Got a guy in Kodai Senga who's been just really good for the Mets whenever he's been fully healthy. He was not fully healthy last season. That's a big reason why he was just not great when it came to the postseason last year, but that's up for Kodai Senga, even though he does allow quite a few walks. For his career, about 3.9 walks per 9 innings. The swing and miss stuff is nasty. 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He induces a lot of solid contact, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. And if he's just able to find a way to be able to hone in the command a little bit more, that allow him to go deeper into games. So far, so good, being able to fill 22 2.2 innings in 4 starts this far this season. And for Jake Irvin, he's come a long way from where he was as a rookie a few seasons ago. The walks numbers have gone down with every year, giving up just 2.1 walks per 9 innings this year, albeit he's allowed a little bit too much hard contact, giving up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, but a 3.68 ERA this far this season, going against a New York Mets team that it's been a little bit hit or miss in terms of the offense for them. Pete Alonso has been amazing, north of a 4 base. He's been able to give you 5+ homers, and Francisco Lindor is starting to come along for the ride. First 2.5 weeks of the season were a little bit shaky for him, but now he's hitting above a 300 with 5 home runs, so he certainly has been round into form. Juan Soto still give you a 365 on base, but power numbers have not necessarily been there. You know that they're going to be there when it's all said and done. I like what Luis Torrens is able to give you at the catcher spot as well, but that said, some of these guys at the bottom of the fold, Jesse Winker's been a little bit rough, Tyrone Taylor, when you've had Mark Vientos out there as he's dealt with a little bit of injury, that's been a bit of an issue. And for the Washington Nationals, they are swinging and missing much more this season than they have in past years, so that I find to be very intriguing as they've turned over the roster a little bit. But James Wood, 8 home runs and a 356 on base to begin the season. He has been tremendous. Keibert Ruiz is hitting above 300. Nathaniel Lowe is able to give you 4 home runs. So you've got some guys that are boppers. Having CJ Abrams hurt has been earning the seam, but whenever you're able to get Alex Call up there, he's been able to above 300. This is the Nationals bullpen that I just flat out don't trust. So like Kyle Finnegan is a closer that I've always had my issues with, even though he's had 9 saves this far this season. He's still a guy that I never really really feel good about. And then you just don't feel good about guys like Eduardo Salazar, Colin Pouchet, Orlando Rebalta. All these guys with north of a 4.70 ERA. Jose Ferreira's not been too great either. And for the New York Mets, this has been a top 5 team in terms of their bullpen ERA. They have done a really good job of just being able to hold it down. Even the shorter guys, I'm not necessarily too fond of. Like, I'm not a big Reed Garrett, Ryan Stanek guy, but these guys have been able to do a pretty rock solid job thus far this season. Oscar Brazoban has been good in long relief. Max Kronick, Jose Buto, these guys are doing a nice job getting you just some good clean innings. And I do think that Kodai Senga going to be able to hold it down here for the Mets. I'm looking personally a little bit more at the run line rather than the money line. With the money line, it's just gotten a little bit out of sorts. And right now for the New York Mets, I'm finding that run line for them between about a -110 to a -115. If I can get a -110 run line, we'll lay that with the Mets to go along with the under. So I might tell it at 8.2. 9-5, 9-6 on the betting board. It is the Milwaukee Brewers on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals as Matthew Liberatore is on the bump for the Cards and Chad Patrick goes for the Brewers. 8 is the total, over and under both at -110. Cardinals are between -125 to -130 favorites, +110 to +116. That number on the crew. If we can get to a +118, which when the dime line comes out, we should be able to get there. I'd be willing to take a shot on the Brewers on the money line. Chad Patrick has been very good as a starter for the Brewers. He had that one blow-up appearance in which they needed him to come in long relief against the New York Yankees because apparently Nestor Cortez could not throw a strike on that day, but ever since that, he has been very rock solid, a guy that I believe won either 13-1 or 14-1 at the minor league level last season. And you take a look at what he's been able to do when he's actually been a starter, he has been rock solid. .33 ERA in his 4 starts, allowing just 3 runs in 20 and a third innings, albeit he has allowed 2 home runs, but I mean, this guy's going out there holding down the fort, doing a nice job. And for Matthew Liberatore, he has been a highly rated prospect for a very long time in this league, and now it feels like he's starting to finally put it together. His early seasons, he just was not getting a lot of swings and misses, and it's not like he's become like some sort of a strikeout artist here or anything like that, but 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings with really good command. He's giving up less than a walk per 9 innings, 25 innings thus far this season, has allowed just 2 walks and 1 home run, so I've been very impressed there. Goes up against the Milwaukee Brewers lineup that, I mean, they're formidable. They were not able to get a day off yesterday because they were playing against the San Francisco Giants, so they're going to be probably a little bit more beat up than a lot of other teams. That said, you've got a pair of guys who are able to hit north of a 300 for this team, as you've been able to get that out of Bryce Terang, who's been able to do a nice job of being able to steal bases throughout his career, and Sal Frelick is at darn near 400 on base. Jackson Chourio, 5 bombs, hitting at 250, not drawing a lot of walks, but he's able to supply that boom. Christian Yelich just is not that same guy that was able to win MVP a few seasons ago, but he is up to 5 home runs this season, albeit only hitting about a 220. And after a rough start to the season, William Contreras, Rhys Hoskins, these guys have been able to get their act together. So I have a little bit of concern in terms of the, shall we say, ancillary infielders. Oliver Dunn, Caleb Durbin, Vinny Capra, they're going to need to get a little bit more there. And then on the flip side, you do have yourself a St. Louis Cardinals team that has been able to get a little bit more out of the likes of Victor Scott, Jordan Walker, these young guys that hadn't been panning out in the past. They're starting to give you a bit more. For the Cardinals, it's just a case where you don't necessarily have a ton of power because your top home run hitter, that would be Ivan Herrera. He's right now dealing with a little bit of injury, so that's a concern. But Lars Nootbaar, 4 bombs, 380 on base. Brandon Donovan has been able to hit for north of 350, and he's always hit much better at home rather than away from home. Wilson Contreras, 269 on base with 2 home runs. You know that he's going to do a little bit better there, and though the power numbers are not necessarily there for Nolan Arenado, still move the line, still give you north of 360 on base. And for the Cardinals, if you look at the raw ERA numbers with their bullpen, it's not great, but they do have one of the best closers in all of baseball in Ryan Elsley. Jojo Romero is off to a rough start to the season, but you know that he's going to be able to pick it up. I do have faith that guys like a John King are going to be able to give you a little bit more. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they were actually the number 1 team in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA last season, and they bring back darn near everyone. Yo Pyam, Elvis Piquero, someone like Jared Koenig, all these guys, Brian Hudson, they're all back, and they've had Abner Uribe be rock solid. That Yankee series is still really torpedoing those numbers. I do think that they're going to be able to give you a good performance here, so I did set my total at 8.2. I do think that both of these young starters doing for a little bit of regression. I do like both of these teams with regards to their starting pitching, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the 8 over, and with the Brewers, if I could get a +119 or higher, I will look at them on the money line. 957, 958 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're under the road to face off against Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland is on the bump for the Rocks, and Andrew Abbott goes for Cincinnati, and the Reds are between minus 135 to minus 142 favorites, plus 118 to plus 122. That number on Colorado. 9 to 9.5 is the total. On the 9, over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 on the 9.5. Under is minus 125. Over is plus 105. I did set my total 9.8. I'm going to be in on the over for Andrew Abbott. He's been very good in his first 2 starts of the season. 11 innings pitched. He's allowed just 2 runs, so you do like to see that. If you look at the career numbers, though, and this dates all the way back to the start of the 2023 season, so 48 total starts. It's a guy that's doing for quite a bit of regression, as he's got a lifetime 3.69 ERA, about a 4.61 fielding independent, allowing 1.5 home runs and 3.4 walks per 9 innings. And for Kyle Freeland, it's been less than savory for him. The fielding independent is actually below 3 right now, but he pitches to a lot of contact out there at Coors Field. That is not necessarily the combination that you want, and man, he has given up 3+ runs in each of the last 4 starts. I will say in the previous start, he gave up less than 3 earned runs, but there were a few unearned runs, and this is a Colorado Rockies team that's not great out there in the field. Well, what else do you need to know about the Colorado Rockies, though, is that this team is much better when they're at home rather than away from home. Entering into Thursday, they were averaging just 2 runs per game away from home, compared to 5 runs per game at home, hitting about a 254 at home, less than 200 away from home. So these guys should be able to pick it up, because you've got some of these guys like Mickey Moniak, Sean Borcher, Michael Toglia, Jordan Beck. You go down the list of guys hitting a 220 or lower end. All these guys are just completely different dudes when they're at home, for lack of a better term, because you look at the home numbers and all of a sudden all these guys are seeing a rise in their batting average by like 50 or so points. Michael Toglia, for example, is hitting at 281 at home. Ryan McMahon is hitting at 300 at home. These guys, they're all starting to fire on all cylinders. Sans Mickey Moniak. Moniak has just stunk in both locations, but I do think that you're going to be able to get a little bit more there. And then we do have a Cincinnati Reds lineup that they've been a top 5 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home, albeit there's a massive outlier in there because they had that 24-run performance against the Baltimore Orioles, so that makes their road numbers look really good right now. But Elly De La Cruz, even though he's been a little bit of Elly De La strikeout thus far this season, he has been able to give you 5 home runs. You know that he's able to swipe some bags. You've been able to have quite a few guys start to move the line a little bit more. Jose Trevino at the catcher spot along with Austin the Sayes Kid, earning above a 300. Niavali Marte, ever since he got recalled, he's been able to give you 375 on base with a little bit of pop. And I do like this Reds bullpen. I don't necessarily love this Reds bullpen, but you got a lot of guys that when it's all said and done, I think that they're going to be able to supply a sub-3.5 ERA this season. You've got the likes of a Brent Suter, Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers, Ian Gilbo. I'm not an Emilio Pagan guy, but that said, he's been okay thus far this season, sans a 1 blown save that he did have. And for the Colorado Rockies, there's always a roll of the dice with this bullpen. Victor Vodnik is just not good, to say the least, and he's now on the injured list. He was the lone guy last year that gave you a sub-4.4 ERA on El Shavili. It's hard to trust in him. You've had Jimmy Erget, Tyler Kinley be relatively okay thus far this season. Should be seeing some regression there. So it is a rather interesting circumstance, because traveling up to Coors is actually a very, very difficult trek. If you're looking at the run line of the Reds, you're only able to get that at about a plus 115. I did set my money line price more on a minus 124, and if we could just get to about a plus 125 or so, which I think we should, when it's all said and done on the Rockies, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. And here at a 9, I'm in on the over, so I told 9.8. 9 to 9, 9-10 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves are going to be on the road. They're facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks as Chris Sale goes for Atlanta and Zach Gallen looks to fill it up for the Saints. Arizona is a home underdog of a plus 108 on the opener on FanDuel. Minus 126 is that number on Atlanta. 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110. And I set the Arizona Diamondbacks at a minus 127. I'm going to be willing to take the Snakes on the money line for Chris Sale. It just has not been the same for him this season. Now, I don't think that he's as bad as a guy that has a sub-5 ERA right now. I think that he's pitched much better than that. That said, it has been a case of a little bit of a drop-off, which you can expect after having a historic year last year where he had a 238 ERA, 209 fielding independent with about 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And what's crazy is he's actually getting more strikeouts this year. He's actually getting 12.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but the problem is he gave up a half home run per 9 innings last year, about 1.5 home runs per 9 innings this year, 6.17 ERA, 380 fielding independent. Again, I don't think that he's going to be back to a sub-2.4 ERA this season, but he's pitched better than what he's shown thus far. And for Zach Gallen, since the beginning of the 2023 campaign, this guy has been rock solid when he has been at home, albeit this year it's been a little bit more shaky for him. That said, if you take a look since the beginning of the 2023 season, he's got an ERA that hovers right around 3 when he is at home. And for Zach Gallen, it's been a little bit shaky for him this year. A 5.6 ERA, fielding independent is more around about a 4.82, and he's been giving up a home run and a half per 9 innings, but I think that he's going to be able to round into form, and he is a guy that I think is going to be able to find it once again. Last start against the Chicago Cubs, little bit less than savory, but settled down after a really bad second inning. And I do think that for the Diamondbacks, being able to supply the amount of offense that they're able to is going to be able to help them out, as since the beginning of the 2024 campaign, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they are number one in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Even a guy like an Eugenio Suarez, who doesn't give you a lot of average, he's been able to just do a nice job of being able to pound the tar out of the ball. He's been able to give you 6 home runs thus far this season. And once again, I'm just fully convinced that Corbin Carroll was dealing with injury last year, because he has come back and he has been absolutely amazing for this team. As right now he is supplying the team with 9 home runs. He's been able to give you darn near 400 on base. I've absolutely loved what I've seen out of him. But additionally, Josh Naylor is giving you 400 on base with 4 home runs. Lourdes Gurriel, he's not hitting for a lot of average, but he's still supplying 4 home runs. You've had Alec Thomas do a nice job being able to move the line 1 through 9. It's just all forces for the Arizona Diamondbacks team. And for the Atlanta Braves, even with the Ronald Acuna Jr. injury, they're starting to round back into form. They had that rough start to begin the season against the Padres and the Dodgers on the road, but Sean Murphy, since coming off the injured list, he's been able to give the team 6 home runs and 44 at-bats. You do like to see that. Austin Riley is looking like the Austin Riley that we all know and love. 6 bombs, hitting darn near a 300. Still need to get a little bit more out of Matt Olson. 4 home runs and only about a 240 average, albeit that on-base percentage is back up to about a 375. But Jarred Kelenic getting below the middle line of 200. Not getting a lot out of some of these guys like a Brian De La Cruz, Orlando Arcia. These guys at the bottom of the fold just have not been able to produce for the team. And for the Atlanta Braves, they did let go of A.J. Minter from that bullpen in the offseason, so now you're having to trot out there a little bit more Aaron Bummer, and Desmond Hernandez has actually been very good in this bullpen as well. I like Dylan Lee, what he's able to provide to be able to get the ball to Horacio Iglesias, but it's been a little bit shaky, and they've got Rafael Montero in there, which that's not necessarily great to say the least. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, A.J. Puck being on the injured list, that does hurt them, but you still have a guy like a Justin Martinez, who I have a lot of faith in. Ryan Thompson has been rock solid in this bullpen. I like what Shelby Miller is able to provide as well, so even with Puck out of the fold, I do think that the Diamondbacks going to be able to close this one out. I do think that both of these aces that have made all-star teams in Gallen and Sale step up here, so I set my total 7.9, like the under. I think that the Diamondbacks should be a favorite, set them at a minus 127, so like them on the money line. 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they hit the road. They're walking the plank to Los Angeles to face off against the Dodgers, as Paul Skeens is on the bump for the Buccos, and you got Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the bump for the Dodgers. Dodgers on the opener on FanDuel are minus 215, and plus 180 is that number on the Pirates. You're finding a total of 7. Over is at minus 105. The under is at minus 115. And if you're going to give me a plus 180 on Paul Skeens, I'm going to be willing to take it. Is this Pittsburgh Pirates team bad with their offense? Yes. Is this a bullpen that I want to be trusting in? No. But I'm getting plus 180 on Paul Skeens, so I'm the schmuck that's going to be diving in on this one. As for Paul Skeens, he's up to a 287 ERA this season, but just a 201 fielding dependent. He's only allowed in his 31 and a third innings, 1 home run and 4 walks. He's still been able to do a solid job with the swing and miss stuff. Last year was about 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. This year it's closer to about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but this guy has still been very rock solid. For Paul Skeens, he has allowed 2 runs or fewer, and I believe all but one of his starts thus far this season. The reason why they haven't won a lot of his starts is not because Paul Skeens has pitched bad. It's because, well, everyone else on the team has not necessarily done their part. And for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, since coming on over from Japan, he's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. 250 ERA and a 247 fielding in that time span. 10.8 strikeouts, 2.2 walks per 9. He has been dominant, and thus far this season, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in the course of 5 starts. But for the LA Dodgers, it has been a little bit more shaky in terms of the lineup over the last 2 weeks. Now, you know that these guys are going to be able to find it because it is the Death Star of all Death Stars. You've got Tommy Edman, who's right now giving you 8 home runs this season. Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, they're still at 6 bombs themselves. You have the likes of Andy Pages, Michael Conforto, Kike Hernandez, able to the mid-hills line of 200 along with Max Muncy. You know that these guys are going to be able to pick it up. Mookie Betts, about a 360 on base. You know that he's going to be able to give you a little bit more, but for the LA Dodgers, they are still dealing with a few guys like Michael Kopech, Bruce Sutter-Greiderall, dealing with injuries in that bullpen as well, so that does make things a little bit more shaky for them. Tanner Scott is one of the better off-season pickups you're going to find. He has been rock solid for the team, and you've had some of these guys like a Jack Dreyer be able to step up in the bullpen. Ben Casprias, Anthony Banda, they're able to give you some solid innings as well, and they're just getting Evan Phillips off the injury Injured List. And then for the Pittsburgh Pirates, David Bednar has not been himself for about 12 months, and Colin Holderman is on the injured list, so that's very much been hurting this bullpen. For the bullpen itself, they were able to get a little bit of rest because Andrew Heaney gave them a great start about 48 or so hours ago. Dennis Santana, Caleb Ferguson, who is a former Dodger, have been rock solid as well. I do think that for the Pittsburgh Pirates, they're going to generate something off of Yamamoto. You've had Oneil Cruz be able to supply 6 home runs at about a 350 on base, so he's starting to round himself into form. Now, you're not getting a lot of average out of too many of these guys. The likes of Andy Rodriguez, Tommy Pham, Adam Frazier hitting at 225 or lower. They're just not giving you a ton. Brian Reynolds is starting to step up after a rough start to the season. Brian Hayes, I just don't know if he's ever going to necessarily be able to find it. But again, I feel like this number has just went a little bit too far. I do think that Paul Skeens is going to be able to lend a relatively solid start. I do think that the Pirates generate a little bit of offense against the Dodgers. I did set my total at 7.3. Paul Skeens' worst start of his career, actually, his second worst start of his career, did come in Los Angeles. So I do think that the Dodgers take him for a few runs. I'm willing to take that 7 over. But being able to get this big of a number, I'm willing to take the plus money on the Pittsburgh Pirates, as we've got 963, 964 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers, and they're going to be playing us the Baltimore Orioles. As going for the Tigres, you've got Mr. Casey Mize, and Brandon Young is on the bump for the Orioles. Orioles do find themselves as underdogs, if any, we're team plus 111, and seeing as high as plus 115 out there, and between minus 122 to a minus 130 is that number on Detroit. 8.5 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And with the Tigers, I set them at a minus 143 on the money line. For Brandon Young in his first career start, allowed 3 runs over the course of 4 innings, and I do think that this is a young gun that's going to be able to step up. I do like his overall outlook, but I do have to have a few question marks with him in this sort of circumstance against a Detroit Tigers team that has really been able to step up with their offense. Last season when they made the postseason, it was all about just bullpen madness and everything like that, but now you've been able to have Riley Green be able to continue to be a relatively good, solid power bat, while you've had Kerry Carpenter at a 300. He's giving you a home run throughout his career of about once every 16 or so at bats. Spencer Torkelson has been able to step up, giving you darn near a 400 on base. He's doing a nice job of being able to slug out the deep ball, and you've got a guy that's in his first career road start, his second career start overall for Mr. Young. And with Young, when he was at the minor league level, he was always a good strikeout guy with about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Never necessarily allowed a whole bunch of hard contact, but he sometimes does get a little bit loose with it, about 3 walks per 9 innings, and these bullpens are just not comparable. You've got a Tigers team with a 270 bullpen ERA, and you've got a lot of guys that are able to just mix and match. Will Vest has been rock solid for them. Obviously, you're bringing Tommy Kahnle to be able to close things out. Brian Herter, all these guys are able to do a nice job. Meanwhile, for the Orioles, bottom 10 with regards to bullpen ERA, even though I do like Yunier Cano, Felix Bautista, getting to them is going to be a little bit of an adventure, especially if you need guys like Keegan Aiken to be able to hold down the fort. And then for the Orioles offense, this is still a top 10 team with regards to run production, and Cedric Mullins has been a great story this year. How about north of a 440 on base with 6 home runs this season? Jordan Westberg, Adley Rutschman both have 4 home runs, but you've had both of these guys hitting at 220 or lower, and in the case of Westberg, less than a 250 on base. Gunnar Henderson has not been himself this year. Less than a 250 on base, 2 home runs in his first 66 at bats. You need a little bit more there. Ryan Mountcastle, 1 home run and 71 or so at bats. So these guys have been a little bit shaky, while that Tigers team has been able to ascend with regards to their lineup. And for Casey Mize, even though the fielding independent is closer to 4, 2.22 ERA thus far this season in 4 starts, he's only getting about 6.5 to 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's keeping the walks down. He's only giving up a home run per 9 innings. Being able to be backed up by this bullpen and being in a little bit more of a pitcher's environment, I do think is going to be rock solid for him, and I do think that the Tigers find a way to get the job done. I did set them at a minus 143, so I'm going to be looking at the money line, and I did set my total at an 8.2. Keep in mind, still not necessarily warm out there in the lovely state of Michigan this time of year, so in on the under and in on the Tigers on the money line. 965, 966 on the betting board. You got the Toronto Blue Jays on the road against the New York Yankees. Carlos Cookie Carrasco is on the bump for the Yanks, and Jose Barrios is on the bump for Toronto. Toronto is a plus 114 to a plus 122 underdog, between minus 128 to minus 135. That number on the Yankees 10 is the total. Unders between minus 110 to a minus 115. The overs between minus 105 to a minus 110. And I set the Blue Jays at a minus 111. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. This is just a big giant fade of Carlos Cookie Carrasco. He's been able to get about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's given up 3 walks per 9 innings since the beginning of the 2021 season. He does have north of a 5.25 ERA as well, giving up a lot of hard contact in that time span. And trust me, I am fully aware of the Jose Barrios home and road splits. I am one of the kings of taking a look at Barrios and not being necessarily a fan of his when he is on the road, as he for the season has been able to give you a 5 ERA with a 5.43 fielding independent. It's 4 walks per 9 innings. Not necessarily great. I do think that he's going to be able to round into form there. And in case you were wondering about the Jose Barrios home and road splits, I am very glad to tell you 359 3.89 home ERA throughout his career, 4.61 ERA throughout his career away from home. He's giving up about 1.4 to 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, a little bit under a home run per 9 innings when he is at home. So again, he is not the same guy when he is away from home. I fully recognize that, but even though he's not the same guy away from home, I just can't get behind Carlos Cookie Carrasco, even though I do know that you're going to be able to get quite a bit of production out of this Yankees lineup, as Aaron Judge is giving you north of a 470 on base. He's been able to just slug the cover off the ball, but Anthony Volpe has been a little bit rough ever since that good start to the season. He has been seeing a little bit of regression in terms of his overall production, so that's something that you do want to be taking note of. Ben Rice has been very good for this team, so I love what he's been able to bring to the table for this team, as he's been able to supply just below 400 on base. He's supplying some good power, and then for the Yankees, Jazz Chisholm, he's not hitting for any sort of average. He has been able to give you a little bit of power, but you need a little bit more there. But if something like Trent Grisham is hitting above a 300, he's been able to slug out 4+ home runs in his small sample size, so I do like what I've been seeing there, and all in all, this is still a very formidable lineup. Meanwhile, for the Toronto Blue Jays, George Springer being able to give you north of a 400 on base to begin the season has been nice to see after he had a little bit of a rough go of it the last few seasons. For the Blue Jays, you're not getting any sort of power whatsoever out of Vlad Guerrero Jr. right now, as he's been stuck on 1 home run thus far this season, but still giving you about a 375 on base. Anthony Santander is hitting below the mid-toes line of 200. You know that he's going to pick it up, but Bo Bichette is back hitting darn near 300 this season. That's been big. And Alan Rodin has been able to give you a little bit of something in the outfield, but that bottom of the fold with Will Wagner, guys like this, they need to pick it up. I do have a bit of belief in terms of this bullpen, though, of the Toronto Blue Jays, as you've had Yimi Garcia go out there for 11 appearances, has yet to give up an earned run. You've actually had Mason Fluharty do a rock-solid job for the team thus far. Chad Green is pretty rock-solid. And for the New York Yankees, you do have a guy in Devin Williams, in which it's hard to trust in him right now. He's been a little bit cheeky ever since the postseason in 2024. Luke Weaver has been amazing in this bullpen. That said, it's hard to have much faith when you've got some of these guys, right, like a Mark Leiter Jr., Ryan Yarbrough in the bullpen. I do like the fact that they've got Ian Hamilton coming off the injury list. I do think that the 10 is just a little bit overblown. I know that the shore porch in Yankee Stadium provides for some run-scoring opportunities, but it's still not overly warm out there in New York, so I do think that this number has gone a little bit too high, even though with these starters, they've been a little bit shaky, to say the least, as far as the season. I did set my total at 8.6, so I'm looking at the under, and I'm going to be willing to take that Blue Jays money line. You've got 967, 968 on the betting board. It is the Boston Red Sox on the road against the Cleveland Guardians. Ben Lively is on the bump for Cleveland, and Tanner Houck is on the bump for Boston. Boston does find themselves in a rather pick'em game. You're going to be finding Boston anywhere between a minus 103 to a minus 110. Meanwhile, even money to minus 110 is that number on Cleveland. 9 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And I'm going to be willing to side with Cleveland in this spot. I do like them on the money line, mainly because you know that with Cleveland, since the beginning of the 2024 season, they are number one in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. I do think that that's relatively reliable. Couldn't set them as much of a favorite. I was only willing to go up to a minus 107, but still going to be willing to bank on that, and especially with Tanner Houck just having a rough start to the season. North of a 7.5 ERA, albeit the 11 earned runs, 12 runs in total they gave up against the Tampa Bay Rays. Massive outlier, and for Houck, he's always been better throughout his career when he's been away from home rather than when he has been at home. At home for his career, 3.89 ERA compared to a 3.65 away from home. And for the Boston Red Sox, again, getting the bullpen when you've got Aroldis Chapman as your main closer, that's not necessarily a place where you want to be. I do think that they're going to be able to get a little bit more moving forward out of someone like a Greg Weissert, who's been a bit shaky to begin the season. Brendan Bernardino has been rock solid. And I do like Garrett Woodlock, the fact that he's able to give you multiple innings, come in there, hold down the 4-9. For Boston, it's been hit or miss in terms of lineup this far this season. Trevor Story, along with Alex Bregman, have been able to give you 5 home runs. Both of these guys hitting north of 295. Love to see that. Weiler Abreu, 4 bombs at 85 at bats, 380 on base. He's been solid, and you've got Christian Campbell, who's doing a nice job moving line. Regressing a little bit from that super duper hot start to begin the season, but still like what I'm seeing there. You do have the bottom of the fold though with the guys like David Hamilton, Christian Casas. A few guys have been struggling in general, and then on the flip side, I do think that you're going to be able to get some relatively good production out of the top lineup for the Cleveland Guardians. Now the concern that you've got is the guys at the bottom. These guys like John Kenzie Noel, Brian Rocchio, Nolan Jones. These guys have been relatively rough, but Stephen Kwan at the leadoff spot, 4 home runs and nearly a 4-on base has been tremendous. Carlos Santana, you need to get more out of him. 2 home runs at a 200 batting average. That's just doing nothing for you. But Kyle Manzardo, 7 home runs. Even though he's not hitting for a lot of average, he's done a nice job of being able to supply the boom. And while the Guardians bullpen isn't quite what it was a season ago because Emmanuel Clase just has not been good this season, it feels like he's just, for lack of a better term, been figured out by other teams. And I just was never bullish on Paul Sewald. I would rather be giving innings to guys like Andrew Walter, Eric Zabrowski, the young guys in the bullpen. You still have likes of Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Tim Aaron. I like the pickup of Jake Junis. These guys have been able to do a solid job for them. And I do think that with Ben Lively, the fact that he's been able to do a better job of keeping the ball in the yard is giving you about a 3.68 ERA, fielding dependent, right on line with that. Last few years was giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, giving up more like 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. A little bit more of a pitcher-friendly environment out there in Cleveland, especially this time of year with it not necessarily being too warm. I do think that we should be having the Guardians as a little bit of a favorite here. I did set my number at a -106, one to go up to a -106 with that Guardians money line, and I did set my total at an 8.2, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on this total under 969, 970 on the betting board. The Houston Astros at the road, they're facing off against the Kansas City Royals. Seth Lugo is on the bump for the Royals, and Aiden Wozniacki is on the bump for Houston. Houston, a -115 to -122 favorite. Even money to +108 is that number on Kansas City, with 7.5 to 8 being the total on the 7.5. Over is -118, the under is -102 on the 8, the under is -120, and the over is even. And I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. I did set my total at an 8.2. Seth Lugo last year gave up a little bit over a half home run per 9 innings, but each of the previous 3 seasons had been giving up north of 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, and we're starting to see that regression come in for Seth Lugo, as he's only got a 3.90 ERA, but a 5.43 fielding dependent. He is allowing 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, and after the last 3 seasons, he had given up 2.5 walks or less per 9 innings. The command has been down this year, giving up about 3.3 walks per 9 innings. He hasn't been awful. He hasn't given up more than 4 runs in any start this year, with the 4 runs that he gave up being on the road against the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium, so not a lot of shame there, but just hasn't been that dominant guy that we did see from seasons ago. And for Aiden Wozniacki, while he is getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, he is certainly giving up the deep ball, and he's another guy that has a fielding dependent much higher than his ERA. A 3.91 ERA, but a 4.90 fielding dependent, because he is giving up 2.3 home runs per 9 innings. Now, the trepidation that you do have in this game is that the Kansas City Royals have been awful at the plate this far this season. Entered into yesterday, dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, but I have to believe that these guys are going to be able to find it a little bit more. You've got Jonathan India, along with Michael Massey, throwing their Vinny Pasquantino, along right around about the Mendoza line of 200. Salvador Perez has started to pick it up a little bit with the 3-8 game they had in game number 2 of that double dip, but still hitting just at 220. Bobby Witt Jr., he has not been able to supply as much power as you'd like to see. He's only got 2 home runs thus far this season, but he's still giving you about a 370 on base. You've had Miguel Garcia find a way to be able to get on base as well, but it does feel like the bottom of the fold, and getting back Marcana should be able to help out this Kansas City Royals lineup. And for the Astros, they've been a bottom 10 team with regards to their overall run production as well. Yordan Alvarez has been off to a rough start to the season. You knew that Alex Bregman, losing him, was going to hurt this team, but Christian Walker, they brought over from the Arizona Diamondbacks, he has not lived up to his billing quite yet. It's been Jose Altuve, Isaac Paredes, and really a whole bunch of other guys for the team. The likes of Mauricio Dubon and company have not been able to step up. Now, both of these teams have been good. I wouldn't necessarily say amazing, but good with regards to their bullpens. You've got the Bryans for the Houston Astros, Brian King, Brian Abreu, who both last year were able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Taylor Scott has not been himself thus far this season. Caleb Ort, I believe, is back on the injured list for the Houston Astros, but Josh Hader, he's back to being his normal self. And for the Astros, even though the lineup has been way down thus far this season, still a record above 500. And for the Kansas City Royals, you've got a pair of guys in the 8th and 9th inning, Lucas Erceg, Carlos Estevez. They're very rock solid. Estevez act up a little bit on Tuesday, but all in all, like what I'm seeing there, John Schreiber has been very good in the bullpen for this team, though Anel Serpa has been a little bit hit or miss. I do think that you're going to get some good production there, but I do believe that both of these starting pitchers are doing for a little bit of negativity, and I do believe that both of these offenses are doing for some positivity, so I did set my tilt at 8.2. I do like the over. I do think that the Royals, getting back Marcana, they're going to be able to be the better form of the offense than what we've seen thus far this season. I don't think that they're at any point going to be dominant this year, but I believe that they're better than the team that entered into the day on Thursday, averaging less than 3 runs per contest, so I did set my line at a -131. I'm willing to take a shot on the Royals money line, and do like this total over as well. 921, 922 on the betting board. The LA Angels, they hit the road. They're facing off against the Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez is on the bump for the Minnesota Twins, and right now the betting board reads old to be determined for the LA Angels, so they didn't really do much to be able to help us out there. This game is presently off the board. When I was checking in a little bit before, I was seeing the Professor Kyle Hendricks being slotted for this one. I am still seeing that as of right now in terms of projected starters. So in terms of Angels versus Twins, if you do indeed get the Professor, I set the Twins at a -162 on the money line. We need at least plus 122 to take a shot on that Twins run line. Plus 163 or higher, we'll be looking at the Halos. And set my total to wear an 8 or less. I beat on the over an 8.5 or higher to the under. Pablo Lopez is just such a tricky guy to be able to gauge in general, because for Pablo Lopez, whenever you take a look at the numbers, they indicate that there should be some positivity coming, but it just never ever seems to be able to come. And for Lopez, he's made 3 starts thus far this season and has looked very good. He has given up 3 earned runs in 16 2/3 innings. Strikeout numbers were a little bit down, but his command was very rock solid. He, as a member of the Minnesota Twins, has an ERA that is higher than his fielding independence, so there should be a little bit of positivity there. And for Kyle Hendricks, it's been a very winding road for him over the last few seasons, and he has been pitching to a lot of contact once again this season, as he's won 20 innings and he's only gotten 10 strikeouts across his 4 starts, but has been able to do a good job of being able to mitigate the hard contact. The home runs he's allowed 3 in total in his 4 starts. Most of those have been solo shots to be able to keep his ERA to 4.050. He's got a fielding independent of a 5.03, so that's been a little bit shaky for them. And for the LA Angels, this has been very much an all-or-nothing lineup, in that the Angels have one of the lowest batting averages in the league, but you've got a lot of guys who will slug out 5+ home runs as far this season. Mike Trout sitting below 200. He's been able to give you 8+ home runs. Taylor Ward. You've got Kyron Paris, who, he has come out of absolutely nowhere for this team. Jorge Soler is up to 4 home runs. Logan O'Hoppe has been able to provide 5 bombs. Luis Renifo not necessarily moving the line the way that you'd like him to, but Nolan Schunel has been able to do a nice job finding a way to be able to get on base. So, the LA Angels lineup has actually been relatively solid. Then when it comes to the bullpen, Kenley Jansen I thought was a really nice pickup. When he's on in super duper prime time, he typically gets the job done. Ryan Zephyrian has been a very good relief piece as well, but you've had Brock Burke not necessarily have a great start to the season from. Reed Devers has actually looked really good in this bullpen, by the way, and for the Minnesota Twins, I don't think that this by any means is an amazing bullpen, but I do think that they're a pretty solid bullpen, as you've had Griffin Jackson have a little bit of a rough go of it to begin the season, but like some Brock and Roll Stewart, Yohan Duran, Danny Kalum, these are guys, they're able to hold it down and just have a lot of injuries when it comes to the Twins, as Royce Lewis, Matt Wallner, Willie Castro are back on the injured list once again. Harrison Bader has been able to give you a trio of bombs, and Byron Buxton has given you a little bit of power, but Byron Buxton just not doing a great job of moving the line thus far this season, as he's only been able to hit 225 with a 263 on base, and that's been one of the biggest issues for the Twins. They are currently hitting about a 216 as a collective, and Wallner was really the best guy in terms of being able to move line, get on base. When you've got the likes of Trevor Larnage, Eduardo Julian, Carlos Correa hitting 225 or lower, all not giving you a lot of power or an on-base percentage, that does make for a little bit of difficulty there. I do think that they should be able to round into form a little bit more, especially with the Angels having Kyle Hendricks most likely going in this game. So I did set a total to wear an 8 or less, looking at the over 8.5 or higher, the under end. Assuming that you do get Lopez against Kyle Hendricks, would need at least plus 163 to be able to dive in on the Angels. Plus 122 or higher will be looking at that Twins run line. 963, 964 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox hit the road they're facing off against the Sacramento A's, as John Burke is on the bump for the Southsiders and Luis Severino is on the bump for the A's. And the A's do find themselves as a sizable favorite. You're going to be getting them between minus 213 to a minus 235. Meanwhile, between plus 190 to plus 185, that number on the Southsider side is a total over and under, both at minus 110. And if you're looking to lay the run line of the Athletics, you're going to be finding that at a minus 115, and I wouldn't want to go past a minus 115, but I'm going to be willing to dive in on the minus 115. And this is a rare case where in Sacramento, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. I did set my total at an 8.8. This is just flat out a fade of the Chicago White Sox offense, who they entered into the day on Thursday averaging about 2.8 runs per contest. They were able to get the job done against Minnesota in that rain-shortened game, but this has been a bunch that just has not been able to generate a lot of power whatsoever. You've got Andrew Benintendi back. He's been able to give you a few home runs, so he's been a bit helpful for this lineup. But when you're relying upon guys like Brooks Baldwin and company to be some of your main boppers here, you know that you're in some deep doo-doo there. They have not been able to get anything whatsoever out of Luis Robert over the last few seasons, as it just feels like the stink has sort of seeped into him and has sort of left him down and out for the count. This is a Chicago White Sox team that additionally, they don't have the world's worst bullpen. They were trotting out their Mike Clevenger, which that was very much a less than savory situation to say the least, but you've been able to have a few guys like a Frazier Aller, Penn Murphy, be able to give you some okay innings. Again, I'm not going to say that it's anything amazing, but you've been able to get a little bit of something there. And for Sean Burke, had that really nice first start of the season, and he was actually the opening day starter for this bunch, and being your opening day starter is not a place where you want to be. But that said, I do think that there's a little bit of upside with him throughout his career. This dates back to last season. He's made 9 total appearances at the big league level, 3.98 ERA, albeit a 5.23 fielding independent, because he has given up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. And this is an Athletics team that at home they have been just pounding the tar out of the ball, because in Sacramento the air is very thin and it leads to everything flying out. That's why Tyler Soderstrom has already been able to be up to 9 home runs thus far this season. And Brent Rooker, though he's not hitting for a lot of average, has been able to hit for quite a bit of power. Then you've had Miguel Andujar come back from injury. He's been able to move the line. Jacob Wilson finally drew a walk a few days ago for the Oakland A's. I should say the Sacramento A's. I'm going to do that all season long, but he's been able to give you north of a 300 average as well. So this is an A's team that all in all, they've been rock solid there, but they're below average in terms of their bullpen, despite the fact that they've got one of the better closers in the big leagues in Mason Miller. Michael Ohtans being on the injured list has been hurting this team, but when you're looking at someone like a Noah Murdoch, TJ McFarland, that does make things very difficult for them. But conversely, you've got a Chicago White Sox team that, again, they're just not really excelling in anything whatsoever. And for Luis Severino, someone that I just don't necessarily have a ton of faith in, especially in this ballpark. Felt like he was getting a little bit lucky last season when he was over with the New York Mets, and overall this season has had his struggles, to say the least, with the Athletics. He's got a 3.31 ERA, but that fielding dependence is more around a 4.28. He has been only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings, has been a little bit lucky on the balls in play. He comes in having allowed at least 5 runs in 2 out of his last 4 starts, albeit the other 2 starts he allowed approximately 1 run apiece in both of those. But I do think that for the Chicago White Sox, they're going to be able to generate a little bit off of them. But again, even though I think that Luis Severino is doing for regression, I just don't think that it happens here against a White Sox team that's been horrible thus far this season. So I did set my total at an 8.8 here to 9. I'm going to be looking at the under, and at a minus 115 or better, looking at that A's run line. 925, 926 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners play against the Miami Marlins as Cal Quantrill is on the bump for the Marlins, and you've got Mr. Logan Gilbert on the bump for Seattle. Seattle does find themselves as minus 240 to minus 250 favorites, plus 205 to plus 221. That number on Miami, if you're looking at the run line of Seattle, by the way, between minus 118 to minus 120 there, and total 7.5. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105, and I was only willing to go up to about a minus 105 with regards to this Mariners run line. If we could find the Miami Marlins at a plus 105 or higher on this run line, right now we're finding that at even money. I would be willing to dive in there, and for the money line of the Miami Marlins, I would need closer to about a plus 230, so I'll be gauging that. But that said, I am actually going to be in on this total under, as with Cal Quantrill, it's been a rough start to the season for him, to say the least. But with Seattle, we've talked about this with our good friend Curtis Rogers over at 710 Seattle Sports. The Seattle ballpark actually shall we say, mitigates and it shrinks down offense more so than Coors Field elevates offense. And for a guy like Cal Quantrill, who's very much a pitch contact guy that has had a rough start to the season, he's made 4 starts and he's given up 16 runs in 17 and a third innings. This is exactly what he needs. He's only getting about 4.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's not really giving up the deep ball. He's only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings, and this is a Seattle Mariners team that is very much built around power, as Cal Raleigh, aka Big Dumper, has been able to give you 6+ home runs this season. Rowdy Tellez has not been able to hit for any sort of average whatsoever, but he's starting to get in on the act with regards to the deep ball as well. For Seattle, you need to get a little bit more of Julio Rodriguez. It's been a rough start to the season for him, as right now he's only hitting in that neighborhood about a 202, but that said, he's still been able to get some relatively good, shall we say, at-bats out of some of the ancillary pieces a little bit further down the board for this team, as Ori Polanco has been able to step up. He's been able to give you well north of a 350 on base as well. I do like the way that you've been able to have Dylan Moore be able to give you a little bit more at the plate. He's been able to supply about a 350 on base with 5 home runs as well. And for Seattle, it's a league average bullpen in my opinion. You've got a really good closer in Andres Munoz, but it gets to be a little bit of an adventure as to how you're going to be able to get the ball to him, as you've got Gabe Spire, who's actually really stepped up for the team. And Carlos Vargas has been solid as well, but Gregory Santos coming off of injury, solid looked like himself. Trent Thornton, Casey Lugumina, these are guys that you do have some question marks with, and Taylor Cicado in his very small appearances with the team, he has not been great, to say the least. And on the flip side for the Miami Marlins, you do have the Anthony Vendor along with Anthony Veziano, who just have not held up their end of the bargain. This is the Miami Marlins team that has one of the worst bullpens that you're going to find in all baseball. And for the Miami Marlins, this is very much a team that plays station-to-station baseball just because they don't really have those power bats out there. Matt Mervis has done a really good job of being able to supply 7 home runs for the team. Nobody else has more than 3 home runs, with Eric Wagaman being that guy with 3 home runs. Now, have Xavier Edwards, who was able to hit for the cycle against the Brewers last season, and Kyle Stowers has given you about a 375 on base. Wagaman has been able to do a nice job moving the line, but Griffin Conine, who I really like for the team, he's on the injured list. Dave Myers is able to get on base as well, but you don't have necessarily a lot of power with regards to this team as of right now. If we can find like a plus 105 on that run line of the Miami Marlins, I'd be willing to take a shot there, just because I don't feel good about laying a run half with the Seattle Mariners here. I'm with the money line north of minus $2. It's just gone a little bit too far out of whack, and it's just gone past a point of no return for me there. So going to be looking at that run line of the Miami Marlins, trying to get a run half, and I'm going to be looking at the under semi-total at 7.2. 927, 928 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays are on the road. They're facing off against the San Diego Padres. We do know that for the Padres, it is going to be the king, Michael King, who's going to be going for them. Right now with the Tampa Bay Rays, this is off the board as they have yet to announce their starter. At last check, I was seeing Shane Baz being able to get the start for them, so we shall see if that is going to be indeed the case. But if we do indeed get the Baz going up against Michael King, I did set the Padres money line at a minus 148. Would be willing to take a plus 140 or higher with regards to that run line, and I set a really low total of a 7.3. At a 7 or less, I'm going to be in on the over, a 7.5 or higher to the under end. For Michael King, ever since he joined the San Diego Padres, he's been able to do a nice job, give you about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. Could sometimes get a little bit funky with regards to the command, but overall, this guy has some of the, shall we say, more deceptive stuff in all of baseball. And I do think that for Michael King, he's going to be able to go out there against the Tampa Bay Rays team that's actually been relatively rock solid with their offense and be able to continue to mitigate the hard contact, giving up only about a home run per 9 innings over the last 3 or so seasons. You're going to be able to continue to keep things good with regards to command as he's been able to give you about 3 walks per 9 innings. But for the Baz, he's really starting to come into his own. 3.22 ERA, albeit it comes with about a 3.30 fielding dependent, but 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. I really love what I have seen out of him thus far this season. And again, with the Tampa Bay Rays, one of the most surprising, shall we say, units in all of baseball has been their offense, because Jonathan Aranda has really been able to step up for the team. How about him hitting for about a 338, and he's been able to slug out about 4 or 5 home runs to begin the season. So you have to like to see that. Junior Caminero has been able to give you some good power. He's supplying 5 home runs. Yandy Diaz, after a rough start to the season, he's starting to move the line. Jake Magnum is sitting above a 300. Cameron Misner is sitting above a 350. You've been able to get good production there, albeit some of these guys at the bottom of the fold, Jose Calabreo, Taylor Walls, Curtis Mead, guys like this, some of the infielders have been a little bit rough, but do like what I'm seeing out of this Rays lineup. And then with the Tampa Bay Rays, it's a story as old as the dawn of time. They're always going to do a rock-solid job in terms of this bullpen. Even some of the lesser guys like Hunter Biggie are relatively solid. Garrett Clevenger is able to come in. He's able to hold down the fort. Pete Fairbanks, always good to be able to give you some relatively good innings out there as well. So just top to bottom, you know that the Tampa Bay Rays are going to do a good job there. Even Edwin Uceta is a little bit of a long guy. He's able to do a solid job. But the San Diego Padres team actually is currently number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had Yuki Matsui, along with someone like an Uteri Motohone, be really good in this bullpen, but you've got Robert Suarez who's able to do a nice job of being able to shut it down. Jason Adam had a sub-2 ERA last season. Even Wandy Peralta, Jeremiah Estrada, these guys are all give you some solid innings. So do you think that this is going to be a lower scoring game? I think that King and Baz are going to be rock solid. Both of these bullpens are going to be as well, even though the San Diego Padres still do have a very fearsome lineup. They do have a few injuries that they have to parse through as well, with having now Jackson Merrill along Jake Cronenworth on the injured list. Luis Ariz was unfortunately taken out in Sunday Night Baseball as well. So while you saw Fernando Tatis Jr., you have Manny Machado. Everything else is a little bit more rough for the team. Now, the undersides like Jose Iglesias, Oscar Gonzalez are moving the line. You just don't have as much power with these guys. You might be relying upon someone like a Yuli Gurriel here in the next week or so if you're the San Diego Padres. Kevin Sheets has done a nice job being able to move the line. Solid power, but not necessarily amazing power. So that needs to be taken into account as well with regards to this Padres team, just all those injuries. So 7 or less, looking at the over 7.5 or higher, the under end. 1 to lay up to a minus 147 on that Padres money line, plus 149 or higher. Looking at the Rays, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the betting board. It is the Walker Texas Rangers, and they're going to be on the road facing off against the San Francisco Giants. As you've got Justin Verlander is on the bump for the Giants, and you've got old Nathan Eovaldi on the bump for Texas. And Texas is in a relatively pick-em game. You're going to find them between minus 104 to a minus 110, or between minus 106 to a minus 110. That number on San Francisco, 7.5 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And when it comes to Texas Rangers, I do believe that they should be the favorite in this spot. I'm going to be able to take a shot on them on the money line. I set my handicap at a minus 117 with Justin Verlander. He looked better in his last start, and I do think that for Justin Verlander, he's not as bad as his north of 6 ERA would indicate, but he is certainly giving up the deep ball. He's giving up north of a home run and a half per 9 innings. Verlander's actually getting north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, so the swing and miss stuff, despite the fact that he's well north of the age of 40, it is still there from, and there should be some positivity with him pitching out there in San Francisco as well. But that said, certainly has been a bit of a rough start to the season for him, and the 4 walks per 9 innings, that's a little bit unsightly. And Eovaldi is a guy that's up there in years, and he's always been a little bit more of a command pitcher, but he's done a better job of keeping that command thus far. He is through 5 starts this far this season. He's got only 2 walks allowed. He's actually given up more home runs, 3, than he has walks, 30 and 2/3 innings, a 264 ERA. That fielding independence right around 286, and for Texas, they've needed it because this has been a bottom 8 team with regards to their lineup. But for Texas, they've dealt with injuries throughout the entirety of the season thus far. far, and getting back Wyatt Langford, who's been able to give you 5 home runs. That's big. Now, Corey Seager hits the injured list. That is not good, to say the least. And Jock Peterson cheaply broke his 0 for 42 slump because that was supposed to be an error, but they gave him it there. Adolis Garcia's had a tough time being able to move the line as well, but you've had Josh Smith do a nice job of being a reach base. I do think that Jake Berger has been really struggling himself since getting into Texas. He's going to be able to give you a little bit more as well for the Rangers, but I do think his biggest trepidation with this team is the bullpen. I actually do like the guys like Sean Armstrong, Kobe Milner, who are able to give you multiple innings, but when you've got the likes of Mark Church, Luke Jackson, Chris Martin, it's really hard to have a lot of faith in that bullpen. And for the San Francisco Giants, I do think that they have a little bit of a leg up in terms of bullpen. It's not the most amazing bullpen in the world, but Lou Trevino has been able to give you some good innings thus far this season, though he's been acting up over the last week or so. That series against the Brewers, a little bit less than savory, but Eric Miller, Ryan Walker, Tyler Rogers, I think that these are going to be guys that are going to be a part of a league average bullpen, not a whole heck of a lot more, not a whole heck of a lot less. Now for the San Francisco Giants, more of the backup guys, Gerard Encarnacion, Casey Schmidt, guys like this are on the injured list, but they are really locked and loaded when it comes to the front end of this lineup. You need to give a bit more out of Lamont Wade Jr., who's been hitting below a 100 thus far. That's been a bit of an issue for them, but Matt Chapman is giving you darn near a 380 in terms of his on base. Not necessarily hitting for a lot of average, but 4 home runs thus far. Jung-Ho Lee is hitting well above a 300. He's been on a little bit of a power surge over the last 2 or so weeks. Wilmer Flores has been able to give you 7 home runs. I really like the way that these guys are coming to the forefront for the San Francisco Giants team, but again, I do have my trepidations with Justin Verlander being out there in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. I do think that it is going to mitigate the scoring a little bit, but with Verlander and his walks issues, I think that might knock him out of the start a little bit early, and let's call it what it is. Verlander very much up there in years, so did set my total at a 7.6 here at the 7.5. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over, and I'm going to be willing to take the Texas Rangers on the money line. Did set them more around a minus 116, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to John Bollman for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways to be able to further those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, and I'll be back with you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.